Hey traders, Ethan Roberts here for Mastering TQQQ Trading. You know, every year the media tells us that the January Barometer means a lot in terms of how stocks are going to do for the remainder of the year. Well, this year TQQQ blasted higher the first 6 days of January. Is it going to mean we're going to have a fantastic year for TQQQ? Well, stay tuned on Mastering TQQQ Trading and we're going to find out. Well, let's take a look first at what is the January Barometer. It's a market theory that the stock market's performance in January will predict its direction for the remainder of the year. And it was originally popularized by Yale Hirsch in Stock Trader's Almanac. Now, since 1950, the S&P 500 has finished higher 75 to 87% of the time after a positive January and lower about 60% of the time following a negative January. Well, there's no guarantee of future performance, but history does suggest there's pretty reliable evidence for this theory. And the first 5 trading days of January are often a foreshadowing of the remainder of the month and year. Now keep in mind that stocks tend to go up about 2/3 of the time, regardless of any theories about January performance. Well, nevertheless, TQQQ ended 2025 at $52.72. On January 8th, the 5th trading day of the year, it was up to $54.19, a gain of 2.79%. And then on the 9th, it tacked on another 2.90%. So there's a total of 5.76% total gain since January 1st, 2026. Of course, 6 up days can influence the annual return as well. We have to keep that in mind. Now, which stocks on the NASDAQ 100 are actually blasting higher? Well, you might be surprised to learn it's not the Magnificent 7 stocks that people typically associate with the NASDAQ 100 and the performance of QQQ or TQQQ. There actually seems to be a rotation going on into other stocks, and the NASDAQ 100 holdings has gone through some changes, with several of the Magnificent 7 stocks diminishing in percentage being held. Let's take a look at some of the best stocks since January 1st of this year. We have Lam Research Corp up 27.56%. Intel Corp, there's a name that people know, up 23.44%. Micron Technology had a great earnings report in December, up 20.91%. ASML Holding, 19.07%. And Microchip Technology up 18.05%. You see any Mag 7 stocks there? I don't. Here's the Magnificent 7 stocks. Let's see how they've done. We have 2 winners. Amazon is up 7.16%, and Alphabet Class A is up 4.97%. But after that, it's all red. Nvidia down 0.90%. Microsoft down 0.90%. Tesla down 1.05%. Meta down 1.07%. And the biggest surprise of all, Apple down 12.49%. Wow. Well, you know, trading an ETF like TQQ or QQQ is great, but knowing which individual stocks of the NASDAQ 100 have the highest relative strength, well, it's like having money in the bank, to be honest with you. So, for example, Intel, which I just mentioned before, up 10.80% this past Friday, and Lam Research up 8.66%, and AMAT up 6.94%, Advanced Materials. Mastering TQQQ Trading Daily Newsletter brings you the top NASDAQ 100 performers every day, Monday through Friday, except holidays, 52 weeks of the year. So if you want to sign up, click the link in the first comment below this video. Well, now let's compare 2026 to previous years looking at the first 6 trading days. In 2022, we had a down start to the year, down 13.8%. 2023, we're up 6.8%, a good start. 2024, we're up but just a little bit, 1.9%. And last year, we're down 2.8% in the first 6 trading days. Compare that with 2026, and we're up 5.7%. Now, one thing to realize about 2023, which is the other one I've got in green on this page, it was preceded by an 84% correction in 2022. So naturally, there might be a relief rally with a new year. But it's interesting to note that TQQQ was up 190.7% in 2023. Wow, what a year. Well, now there's another consideration to take into effect. Since TQQQ suffers price loss from long-term decay, we shouldn't try to compare how the general market like the S&P 500 has done with the January Barometer in relation to a full year's performance with TQQQ in relation to a full year's performance, because with the decay, it's likely that the S&P 500 and even the QQQ will outperform TQQQ in relation to the January Barometer versus full year performance, even if TQQQ gets a head start during a bullish week like we had this time. Now, just because TQQQ had a strong start to 2026 does not mean that I'm suggesting a buy and hold strategy. You know there's problems holding TQQQ long term because of the decay. There will be pullbacks along the way. It is volatile, and short-term geopolitical and economic events will poke holes in its return for sure. 2025 had a 36% gain, and so far 2026 looks like a continuation of that. But remember, a strong January increases the likelihood but does not guarantee a strong year, nor even a positive one. So will the January Barometer and TQQQ's 5.76% rise portend a great year ahead? Stay tuned, because we're going to find out. And keep it right here on Mastering TQQQ Trading. This is Ethan Roberts saying, have a great week trading, and see you next time.